When Han Feng heard Li Zhenghao's name, he was momentarily at a loss for words, because everyone knew how strong he was. Being a lone wolf, Li Zhenghao wasn't outclassed or outmatched in any way, so how can the other homeowners compete? Wouldn't the people on the committee be badly beaten? Han Feng, genuinely perplexed, asked in a somewhat nervous, yet knowing tone. Exactly, right? But this Zhang guy still wanted to save face at a time like that and refused to admit defeat. So, under the instigation of the persistent Zhang, these homeowners who were initially scared to fight were instantly filled with fighting spirit and continued their one-sided beatdown with Li Zhenghao. In the end, they were all defeated, beaten so badly beyond recognition by Li Zhenghao. For a strategic and meticulous person like Glasses Man, this overwhelming defeat was a bad move for him. And it seems that his actions was to either subjugate Li Zhenghao through brutal force, or remove the threat he poses completely before it becomes too powerful to ignore. However, these actions unknowingly led to the rise of Li Zhenghao. He also gained a group of followers because of this incident, and two of them were very famous. The first henchman was Zhang Yangyu, a former fan of Li Zhenghao. I heard that he has been fighting in black boxing for a few years and is famous for his speed. The other was Jin Zhongzai, and he too was a fanatical fan of Li Zhenghao. It is said that he was born with supernatural strength and is as strong as a beast. Li Zhenghao, relying on the prestige of these two henchmen, formed a force in our community. And this group of people really hate the hypocritical Zhang Shueyo. In order to divert the conflict and avoid further humiliation and beatdown, Glasses Man is now eyeing Han Feng's supplies. Li Zi continued that Glasses Man would try every possible means to steal these supplies to save the face he'd lost. You know, like some sort of redemption. Hearing this, Han Feng added that if what Li Zi said was the case, then his decision to win him over was just a spur-of-the-moment one. That's right, and I believe he would use that to affirm his stance to rob you. Before I fainted, I wanted to come upstairs to tell you that they were coming to rob you. Han Feng held his chin in deep thought. He now realized how it was no wonder Zhang Shueyo wants to win over his brother Li. It seems he was not having a good time at the moment, and desperately needed a henchman who was decent when it came to fighting. This was to increase his might and give the other homeowners a chance to compete if it comes to it. As the group continued to chat, a sudden click at the door drew their attention. Li Zi, clueless as Han Feng, wondered anxiously what it might be. Someone is coming. The little girl took out her phone and showed the two the live surveillance footage. In the footage, all the homeowners had gathered at Han Feng's door, and Glasses Man was quietly issuing orders to them. They came well prepared and even brought ballistic shields with them. Seeing this, the two immediately panicked. Han Feng quickly told the girl and Li Zi that he was going to electrify the door. But the moment he was about to head for the door, the little girl held his jacket to stop him. Han Feng halted in his tracks and turned to question what the problem was. With a slight hesitation, the girl replied that she smelled sulfur. Sulfur. But at this moment, before the three could figure out what was going on, a deafening explosion rang out shortly after. And with it, a massive quake that made the two and the girl tremble to the ground and on the table respectively without any resistance. Han Feng gritted his teeth and covered his right ear. How dare they try to blow me up? When the three gained their bearings, the girl explained that the unwanted intruders were using local blasting explosives, which were not very powerful but effective in getting the desired job done nonetheless. Curious, Han Feng asked how she knew all this. She simply showed him the surveillance. What a bunch of bastards! Li Zi cursed loudly. However, Han Feng noticed a familiar figure among the crowd, a figure he couldn't ignore. Of course, this person was none other than Li Hyona, who was, at this very moment, detailing everything she saw and knows about Han Feng's apartment. Oh, so it was you who brought Zhang Shueyo here. Seeing Hyona, Han Feng was a bit regretful for allowing her to escape. He was too preoccupied at that time in eliminating the immediate threat and cutting off Hyona's support to deem her of being a threat also. But it seems letting her live was definitely a mistake he intends on rectifying when he gets the chance. Han Feng warned Li Zi to stay away from the door. He took out a plug and inserted it into a socket in one swift motion. And what followed after was a loud piercing scream at the other side of the door. At the other end of the door was a male homeowner electrocuted to a charred stake, his face highlighting the agony before his death. Seeing this scene, the others, especially Glasses Man, were frightened and dumbfounded, and they were having second thoughts in approaching the door. He took another bundle of the local blasting explosives and handed it to his loyal lackey, Jin Qinwen. Install the explosives at the junction of the door and the wall, he said, and try 2 packs this time. Jin Qinwen nodded slightly, and with extreme caution, he managed to do exactly as he was told. At a safe distance, the explosives detonated with a massive boom, and with it, rocks and sand were flown everywhere. However, Han Feng's door and walls were intact. The only damage was a few cracks. The group, hiding behind their ballistic shields, were completely astonished. Mr. Jiang Jin called out. It still didn't explode. Obviously, he could see the result for himself. Glasses Man, momentarily speechless, didn't reply and took a moment to silently assess the situation. He knew the explosives themselves were certainly fine and not the issue. It seems that this Han Feng guy had taken some precautions in advance. In a calm tone, he told Jin Qinwen to use 3 batches of explosives together this time around. And he should designate a precise place to blow it up properly to avoid damaging the entire floor. If there is still no movement, keep adding more. We must seize his apartment and everything in it today at all cost. Although his demeanor was calm, Glasses Man was growing more and more anxious with this outcome. Back inside the apartment, Han Feng and Li Zi had managed to barricade the door with anything they could get their hands on in their immediate vicinity. Sofa, table, wardrobe, barrel, chairs, and even a television. Seeing Li Zi using a television, the two suddenly laughed at the idea, but their laughs were soon overshadowed by another extremely massive, deafening explosion. It was too loud that the two couldn't help but covered their ears in pain. Han Feng shouted, asking if Li Zi also feels that the explosions were getting louder and louder. However, Li Zi couldn't hear a word Han Feng said and shouted for him to repeat himself. A while shortly after the explosion, everything quieted down, and Han Feng's hearing returned to a somewhat normal state. But he immediately began turning his head from right to left and left to right, questioning what the cracking sound was. Their gaze instinctively shifted to the door with a terrified expressions itched on their faces. Fuck, the wall. The wall is cracked, Li Zi shouted in panic. Quick, let's get something else to block the door. Something bigger. Han Feng saw the extent of the cracks and knew that if the explosion continues like this, the cracks will only get bigger and bigger. And at that point, barricading it would be pointless. He told Li Zi that there was no point blocking the door at this point, but they should quickly move everything away because he had a solution. Hearing this, Li Zi pointed out that the stuff placed at the door were a lot and it would take a considerable amount of time to move them all. By then, another explosive might be detonated and they could get hurt if they are too close. The little girl suddenly appeared in front of the two and calmly stated that she would remove everything. Hearing this, Li Zi started scolding her. Are you kidding me? He shouted. Listen, little kid. Hurry up and go back to your bedroom and hide. As he said this, the girl ignored him, raised her hands, and opened her dimensional space as Han Feng just watched quietly without uttering a word. The moment Li Zi saw this, he subconsciously took a step back, questioning and cursing with a look like he had eaten a huge pile of shit. Damn it, what is that? In a few seconds, everything was sucked into her alternate space, clearing the path. So with everything gone, she motioned for Han Feng to take over. So scary. Did you suck it all in? Li Zi still couldn't believe what he was seeing and immediately started pleading not to be sucked in like the stuff earlier. He would rather die in the hands of the homeowners outside than to be eaten without any trace. However, his fear was soon replaced by another surprise that left him utterly shocked. Li Zi couldn't help but shout as Han Feng dashes towards the door with his purple glowing hand. Poor Li Zi felt like he was having a heart attack and demanded an explanation, but he was also ignored by Han Feng. Placing his purple glowing hands on the door, he knew that he must first soften the wall similar to his previous actions, and see if he can reshape it. But he needed to be careful when it came to controlling the range, otherwise the hardening process will be extremely difficult and there wasn't much time either. Han Feng studied the process carefully, and the moment the integration started, he noticed right away without difficulty. He immediately added the green glow, and shortly after with maximum effort, the door and wall was good as new. The method worked and eased his doubts and worry. He was unsure whether the purple light, together with the green light, could also fix damaged things. The result was a success, meaning that they could not only strengthen but also repair. On the other hand, Li Zi was losing his marbles at this point, but he kinda got the gist of what was going on. Sure enough, bro, I'm not insane, right? Is this magic? You have superpowers, don't you? Hearing this, Han Feng felt a headache coming on. It felt good and liberating being unrestrained and to be able to use his power freely and openly. But the consequences and the pain of having to explain was annoying. Han Feng was about to explain himself when the girl suddenly spoke up, telling the two to get down and cover their ears. Although they were prepared this time around, the deafening sound made Han Feng and Li Zi scream like children while the child among the three was handling the situation like an adult. When the chaos subsided, Han Feng was shocked to find out that the wall at the lower level had cracked again, and this time with much severity. What? I just strengthened it. Why is it cracked again? The girl observed the surveillance outside and noticed that Glasses Man had altered his strategy. He intends to blow up a specific area, which was the ground level of the wall rather than the entire section of the wall together with the door. In the live footage, a massive local blasting explosives laid directly at the door, seconds away from detonating. Han Feng, sweating bullets, gritted his teeth in anger. He knew that, in this situation, no matter how he fix it, it would be completely useless. The current explosive was the biggest one yet, and considering what the previous one did, the wall would not be able to hold for another round of repair. He turned to face the two and said with a fierce look in his eyes, "I have a dangerous idea. Are you willing to believe me for once?" The two readily agreed. After all, it's not like they had any other option at this point. Whether to block or to do something, it's all up to Han Feng. Han Feng stood tall and determined, his demeanor like that of a person with an insane yet a brilliant idea. "Okay, then do exactly as I say."